And there we go! We have a breakup. Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and in today's video, we are back in Sinking Simulator, and today we're going to be sinking the Britannic. So yeah guys, let's get into the video. Alright, so here we have the Britannic, and we're going to be sinking the Britannic as accurately as possible. So first and foremost, we need to cut a big hole in the side of the hull for the mine explosion. Then what we need to do is go ahead and cut a few holes here and here, along with this space right here, this coal bunker, and this boiler room. So now it's accurate because the water is going to be flooding through these open boiler room doors, or watertight doors, and it's going to fill those compartments up, and it's going to be a domino effect essentially, where water just floods over one compartment to the next, and the next, and the next, and the ship will be dragged down because of the loss of buoyancy. So basically the reason why these doors are jammed open, or open in the first place, is because the entire ship's hull was twisted slightly, which bent the tracks on the doors, the watertight doors, so they couldn't slide down. So when they tried to slide the doors down, it didn't really work because they were jammed in place. So now we've got water flooding into all of these compartments here. We have 5 compartments open up to the sea, and of course, as we know, the ship could only handle 4, and that is what doomed the Britannic. So as you can already see, these boiler rooms here, boiler room 6 and 5, are completely flooded, and boiler room 5 is now starting to pour into boiler room 5's aft coal bunker, and as we know from there, it's going to spill up into the next compartment, which will be boiler room 4, and also boiler rooms aft and forward coal bunker as well. So we're gonna see a rapid domino effect here of water just spilling into compartments. Now, if you're wondering what this space is right here, this long rectangle that just goes up many decks, that is actually the spiral staircase. Now, this was a central staircase that it actually had 2 staircases on either side of the ship, on the port and starboard, and these went all the way down to the fireman's passage. And when the fireman's passage was blown open by the mine, it actually caused gallons and gallons of water, hundreds of gallons of water, to flood through the fireman's passage just like a fire hose, and it shot out of both ends of the fireman's passage, one heading straight for the stairwell and one heading straight into boiler room 6. The forward part of E deck is now half flooded, as you can see there, and it is taking a pretty heavy effect on the sinking. And as you can see, the forward peak here is pretty much completely dry, and that'll soon change once the water reaches D deck or the top of E deck, where it will spill out into the chain locker, and well, it's pretty much over for the forward peak of the ship. Now, in real life, there were open portholes pretty much along the whole ship, so I'm gonna go ahead and just demonstrate that by just poking open a few holes in the side of the hull here, just to show how big of an effect these open portholes had on the sinking. Now, the reason that these portholes were opened was because they wanted fresh air for the patients that they were going to be taking on board later in that day, I believe, or the next day, and they just wanted fresh air themselves as well, the stewardess and the nurses. And as you can see, the ship is already beginning to sink a lot faster. It's almost completely visible now, instead of how it was before, where it was very slow and you could barely notice it. But now it is definitely visible. You can see it's dropping rapidly there. And this is how it was in real life. There were open portholes, and surprising enough, there were actually open portholes on Titanic as well. Only in the D-deck reception room area or dining room area, there was only a few portholes open, and maybe 1 or 2 cabin portholes. But those were for the same reason, they wanted some fresh air. Now, as you can see, the forward peak area is beginning to rapidly flood, and it is taking a big effect on the sinking. As you can see, the bow is dropping rapidly. The stern is beginning to rise out of the water just a little bit there. Now, as you can see, boiler room 4 is flooding, and it's actually flooding in from F decks. The water has flooded over the boiler room and entered a hatchway or a doorway, and now flooded into the boiler room area. Now, as you can see, the bow is completely flooded. It's already underwater, and you can see the stern is starting to come clear out of the water now. Now, as you can see, boiler room 4 is almost completely flooded, and there goes the forward coal bunker for boiler room 4. It is now underwater. And as you can see, A deck is now beginning to flood, and as you can see inside the ship, there is a big difference between the outside waterline and the inside waterline. And the water is just shooting through the ship. It's running down stairwells, passageways, hallways, into cabins, wards, and it is taking over the ship 1 foot at a time now. Boiler room 3 is now flooding, and actually the coal bunker is flooding first here, and as you can see, there seems to be a lot of water building up on E deck and just running straight through F deck into the boiler room here. So this is getting very, very scary as time goes on, especially for the people on board the ship here. Now, if you're wondering where the water level is in the grand staircase, well, it's actually on C deck. As you can see right here, that's C deck, and the water is beginning to just trickle in. It's actually rushing in. It's just not too visible on a scale like this. And as you can see here, each deck is independent of each other when it comes to flooding. If water reaches a stairwell, it's going to pour down that stairwell, but each deck is now flooding through its own opening, which means that there's no water flooding from one deck to another. It's just water flooding from each deck from the outside to the inside. So it's getting chaotic, I would say. Both props and the rudder are now out of the water. The forward funnel, just the base of the forward funnel, is now beginning to be submerged by the water. As you can see, there's a significant air pocket inside the ship now. Now, instead of the water flooding from the lowest deck to the highest deck, it's actually now turning into the opposite. The water is flooding from the upper decks to the lower decks. Now, the reason that is there's more water coming in from the upper decks, which means it just flows down. And this is a very scary situation because air pockets can form very easily. And as you can see, Boiler Room 2 is a great example of that, and this space here is a great example of that. If you're trapped in there, you cannot get out. You will die. Now, the water level inside the grand staircase is kind of like Titanic right now. You have water starting to flood in through the windows on the boat deck level, and the actual water level inside the grand staircase is only on A deck. So, very Titanic reminiscent here. Now, as you can see, the singing has slowed down quite a bit, and you can tell this because, first of all, I can barely see the ship moving, and two, the water level inside the ship has leveled out slightly, which means everything is calmed down somewhat, which is interesting. Ooh. Something big just happened over by the second funnel, and the ship is beginning to drop. I think a stress fracture just occurred. The ship is now rapidly beginning to flood again. Now, as you can see, these decks are going to start independently flooding once again. They're not going to be flooding one deck after another. And there you can see the jagged lines of the water starting to flood each deck now. And there we go! We have a breakup. The stern has collapsed back, and the bow is dropping. So there we go. That was very surprising. The engine room is rapidly flooding. The bow is sinking to the bottom there. We have a bit of breakup here with part of the third funnel base. And as you can see, it is beginning to pull itself under once again. The Britannic stern has gone vertical, and now it's over vertical. And that's probably it trying to rotate. But since in this simulation it can't rotate, so it only goes over 90 degrees, since we're stuck on a perfect level plane here. And as you can see there's rapid flooding throughout the ship, and the stern of the Britannic is sinking under very quickly as well. And there it goes. The stern of the Britannic has sunk under the waves, and the little flag there just goes under as well. So there we go. The sinking of the Britannic in Sinking Simulator. It wasn't completely accurate because we had a breakup. The ship split in two. But we somewhat simulated it. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and a comment, and I'll see you next time, guys. Goodbye!